We all have this antenna that connects us with whatever reality we want to experience in our life. And I touched on this in previous videos when I was describing what I learned from Tufti the High Priestess, the book by Vadim Zeland, when he was describing the plait technique, the Plait, plait, or in other words, the braid. And there's this energy plexus that exists that comes out from behind our head and comes down like a braid. And when we contemplate on this energy plexus, it raises up. And when it raises up like that, it shifts our perspective. And in doing so, it shifts our reality. And in this video, I'm going to go in deeper as to how this works and how this is effective, how this really helps us manifest things into our lives, especially when we're going through doubt, especially when we're going through some kind of resistance in our life, or we're not seeing any kind of manifestations occurring or anytime soon, and it's hard to keep the faith alive. So I was really getting into what Vadim Zeland was explaining in his book Tufti the High Priestess when it comes to the plait technique. And he briefly touched on this as well in his previous books in reality transurfing, when he said he was talking about the assemblage point, which he got from Carlos Castaneda. And Carlos Castaneda was describing this, and there's a certain picture, and it's the only place I can find online from the shifting of consciousness.info. And I slightly modified it because in the Tufti the High Priestess book, he was saying that this energy plexus comes down from behind the head. But also in the reality transurfing book, because he was describing Carlos Castaneda's explanation of the assemblage point, was saying that this energy plexus comes out from between our shoulder blades and our back, our upper back. So I kind of modified the picture a little bit so it can look like it's coming out from behind our head or our back. But I believe that the reason why it's not that important as to exactly where from the back of the head or the back of in between the shoulder blades is because I remember Vadim Zeland was explaining in his book Tufti the High Priestess that you really only have to get a general sense of this energy plexus that's right behind you, behind your head or behind your back. And when you do so, it's funny because you actually do feel this shift. And he said you can actually feel it in your eyes. Your eyes will go up to a certain angle, like it will go up. And that's when you're activating what he calls the plait. Or in other words, like Carlos Castaneda said in his books, the assemblage point. So to briefly explain it, we all have this electromagnetic cocoon. Everything, every living being, everything in the universe has this cocoon, this invisible electromagnetic cocoon. And throughout the entire universe, there's these strands, these threads of energy that have awareness and perception in and of themselves. And they are the intention, the commands of the universe. And they all have their own unique perspective. And they're all competing for our awareness. So they can gain awareness, and when they bring back that awareness back to the creator of the universe, that awareness has been modified and has been upgraded. And so in this illustration that I'm showing, you can see the cocoon, you can see the energy plexus, you can see the assemblage point, the very tip of what Vadim Zeland calls the braid or the plait. That very tip right there is what determines the reality that we experience, our perception. And he said that what happens is when we go through a certain shock in our life, or like a worldwide event like what we're going through now, it has a way of moving this assemblage point, this braid, this antenna. I like to think of it like an antenna. It looks like an antenna, right? And when it shifts, when it moves, our perspective is changing as well. And that's all you basically need to understand with this. You can get deeper into it if you would like to, but in this video I want to give a general overview of this, even though it is even more detailed than what I've described before. And so the reason why this is a very powerful technique and it's very new, it's a very newer manifestation method that I've come across. And the whole point that Vadim Zeland was saying in his book Tufti the High Priestess, that we have this bad habit of reacting to reality, of reacting and responding in a certain same way, and we start to hope and wait, and we start to feel discouraged, or we start to anticipate or get anxious and wonder how things are going to work out, when are things going to work out. And that's our bad habit that we have. So instead of doing that, he says to compose reality. you use your imagination, which is this part right here in between your eyes and your forehead area. You're using your imagination to compose the reality that you prefer to experience. You can see it like you're inside it already. Not like you're looking at it like a picture or a movie screen. You're inside the movie. You can look at reality like an actual movie. You're the movie star, and you're also the director, the producer, everything. You can change your reality. It's all up to you. And so when you envision yourself within this reality, you also, well, let me backtrack a little bit. Before you start to compose reality, he says it's best to get into that vibrational frequency where, and I've described this too, I described this in previous videos as well, where you imagine and feel the energy currents coming up within you and coming down. So from below, from your feet up to your head, or from your head down to your feet. And also I described the key technique where you imagine this arrow going forward and then up, and an arrow going backwards and down. So that gets that vibrational momentum going. And also when you envision this energy plexus like a sort of antenna that's coming out from either from the back of your head or your back in between your shoulders, you start to feel something when you do this yourself. You're using your imagination, but also you're physically feeling the difference, this physical shift. So once you start to feel that shift, you compose reality. You envision the reality you prefer to experience, and now you're in alignment with doing that. And I like to think of this as the antenna, that assemblage point, the braid, the plait technique, that energy plexus that's coming out like an antenna, because it's connecting you. Like an antenna is like this invisible connection to things. Like when you use your car keys to unlock your car or to turn on your car alarm, you're nowhere close to it, or not that close to it. You're not even touching it, but yet you having some sort of physical effect on it. So there is some sort of connection going on, even though you can't see it. And so that's why I like to look at this like the antenna, because we want to feel some sort of connection to that reality when we don't feel it, when we're not seeing it, and when we're feeling that anticipation or anxiety or frustration that it's not happening yet, we feel that disconnection. So that's why I like this technique. And all those threads of energy going throughout the whole entire universe, when we shift that, when we move the antenna, that plate, or the assemblage point, however you prefer to explain it or to put it, when that shifts up, you can feel it go up. That is when the different filaments, the different energy threads of the universe, you're actually tapping into different ones. You're changing your awareness. And in doing so, because of the cause and effect principle of correspondence of the universe, it has an effect with the rest of the perception that you're having in your whole entire reality. And that's why I like to use this illustration, because it's a very, it can be a little bit of a challenge to describe this in words. But once you see the picture and then you start to understand it a little bit, and you can feel it, you can physically feel the experience of these energy currents going through your body, within your body, around your body, that energy plexus that's coming out from your back or behind your head. And then when you contemplate, when you imagine the reality that you prefer to experience, and you really get into it, like literally you're inside that reality, while you shift your vibrational frequency with this certain manifestation antenna technique, I like to call it, that is when you start to get into the habit of composing reality. It's like you're going through something in your life that you don't like to experience. So if you want to shift that movie frame, this is how you do so. And it's hard to shift that movie frame when you're still reacting and responding in the same way, and you're still within that same vibrational frequency. And so that's our habit, is that we're trying to figure out how things are going to happen, how are things going to work out, when. And instead of having that habit, let's just compose reality instead and use our imagination, the plate technique, the assemblage point, the manifestation antenna. Notice that vibrational shift that you're having. And then what really seals the deal with all this is that you acknowledge the vibrational shift within your electromagnetic cocoon, and you feel like you already are that person that is experiencing the reality you prefer to live. You are within it here and now. And that's the habit that we need to have in order to shift realities. And so just remember, you have this antenna, the assemblage point, the plate, and I called it before in a previous video, the magic wand to your desires of what you want to manifest. and that it's there. And just realize that when you do so, when you imagine this energy plexus, it has a way of clearing resistance. And think of it like this: you think of something in your intentions right here, but when you imagine the tip of the braid, the tip of the plate, that assemblage point, and you can feel the shifts go up, you can feel it lift up. Let that be proof, physical proof. You can feel the vibrational frequency physically. Let that be proof that you're manifesting your desires. You can even say a certain affirmation that your desires are being realized. Let that be your reassurance and make that a habit for you. So then it gets to the point where instead of you looking for where is it, instead of that habit, you create it, you compose it. And as you go about your day, you'll notice one thing leads to another. Your reality is shifting little by little, but after enough time, you really start to see the difference.